Well, hello, and welcome to the show. I'm Nadia Jordana, and you are watching Where Women Talk. We're here today with author Stephanie Schwartz, and she has a book series out that the fourth of which in this series is out right now for the holiday season. So, what I'd like to do is have Stephanie say hello and tell us about this book series and her newest edition. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadia. I have a new series of Amish romance books, and this is the newest addition to this series. It's also the last book in the series of three, so you do want to read the first two first. And I have the first one in the series is Wherever You Go, There You Are. And all the titles come from Amish sayings. Number two in the series is You Have Ravished My Heart, and that's from the Old Testament from King Solomon. This story follows an Amish woman. She has struggled her whole life to keep her faith, and in spite of that, horrible things have happened. She's lost a husband, she's lost a child. It can't get much worse than that. And she decides to find a way to block off her heart and not ever feel that pain again. And that's what the stories are about. And we follow her journey. And I'm not going to give you the ending, but you do have to read them in order to get to know her in book one, and then to see where this incredible journey leads her. And then the very last one at Christmas time, what her faith and what God has given her.
You know, Stephanie, I've read part of this series, and it was a while back when it was still in beta form, but I was so struck by the wonderful detail and facts about the Amish life. I could have read on for that alone, over and above the story. It was so interesting. And I'm looking forward to the idea of how they did Christmas.
Well, that's a good question. I grew up Jewish of all things, and I never had Christmas. And I never missed it because our own traditions were rich and it was family. I was curious, but I wasn't longing to have Christmas. So when I met the Amish and I worked as a midwife among them, I was able to ask, do you have trees? Do you have nativity scenes? And why don't you? But each Amish settlement makes their own rules. It's called the Ordnung. And by being a midwife, I was accepted into the community to help the women and was able to see another world that many, many people never have that chance to even glimpse. So writing Amish romance has been interesting because I found the details are often true, and I wanted to represent that. I wanted to represent their faith and their values and not turn it into a sensational, syrupy romance. That was important to me to portray the side that I got to see. So the Christmas book includes all the little things I was able to ask my Amish lady friends. They were very helpful, a bit suspicious. What am I going to do with this? And then they started buying the books too. And they were very vocal to tell me if I got something wrong, which was interesting. And I actually rewrote part of the first book in this series because they asked me to. It was getting a bit too personal which was interesting. I never experienced that as a writer before. But I had to honor their wishes in order to continue my friendship with them. I've included real Amish recipes, real details from when I walk into their homes. Some of the conversations are based on true visits. And I like to bring you into a whole new culture. I've always been interested in other cultures as a midwife. I was delivering Ethiopian and Somali babies in the Twin Cities back in the 90s and early 2000s. And to be able to be invited to a baptism, to be able to invite it home with them afterwards for the feast was just mind-boggling. I got to see all these things right here in Minnesota. I felt very, very honored. And the Amish are like that also.
Did it take a period of time in your interactions with the Amish? Did it take a period of time for there to build that trust where you were able to come and go in the community as a friend and not just as an acquaintance?
Yes, we are on very friendly terms, but their entire culture is based on inclusion and a mistrust of the rest of the world. I think many churches have the same sense of self-preservation. If we get too chummy with them, our kids might want a TV. If we get too chummy with them, they might not want to work the farm when they grow up. They might see other things that are forbidden here. For example, when my daughter got married and I made her wedding dress, I showed my Amish lady friends pictures of the dress, and they were very interested, very intrigued to a certain point because they had never seen anything like that, much less a phone with photographs that looked that good. So I don't think I'll ever be accepted as a sister, except Schwartz is an Amish name too. And I did some investigating and found out that the Schwartz remnant of the diaspora originated near Moravia in Eastern Europe. And that's also where the Amish originated from. And both groups, the Jews and the Amish, were persecuted and were able to retain their traditions and be able to represent that to the next generation. And that has not been easy for the Amish. All the worldly temptations that every other group has to balance and find the way.
So one of the I think pluses of this series, actually, I guess it's three books and not four like I was thinking, but one of the pluses of this series is your authenticity of the facts of Amish life. Is that correct?
That is, and I got a wonderful endorsement from readers' favorites online. And the man that reviewed the book said that he said it stands out on the fact that I am representing the values and faith of the Amish. And that is definitely true. I don't know how many of the other authors who write Amish fiction have actually been on an Amish farm, much less in the bedroom as a midwife. And I don't want to flaunt that, but it's a singular honor. It's been fun. It's been interesting. I also know I can only go so far in our friendship. I've brought nature books for some of the children, but I don't want the parents thinking they've got to restrict any involvement with me. So I put my phone away now. I don't take it out anymore since the wedding.
Do you have you learned any insights into some of the traditions that surprised you more than others? There are certain traditions like their transportation and television and electricity that we all seem to know, but were there some things that surprised you?
I have to think about that. uh, you can't stereotype any one group of Amish. And then within the Amish worldwide, well, North and South America, basically Canada, there are groups that are more conservative. There are bishops who forbid certain things like electricity. Some bishops have allowed a telephone in a shop. If in Pennsylvania, if the quilt shop is drawing tourists and they're able to make money that way, because farming is so very competitive in this country, especially with big agriculture, and it really has taken a hit on the Amish. So they're very, very resourceful. They are opening up their own welding shops, their tack shops, uh, leather making. Very interesting. That surprised me in uh, how resourceful they are in finding ways. Some groups, some very conservative groups, will not let the families in their district call an English person like me to drive them anywhere. They're only allowed in a car if it's an absolute emergency, like a doctor, or they've been in an accident or something. Now, there's other ones. There's one little group in Minnesota here that call me to bring them to doctor's appointments. And that's been interesting because having a bit of a medical background, I'm able to suggest different options for different treatments that they have been offered. I don't diagnose, but we had one woman who had a very, very bad veins and wanted to have everything, just cut out and have surgery. And I said, there are other ways here. And we started going to a specialist, and that opened their eyes to some of their other options that were less invasive. So they have been asking more and more what I think, what I would recommend, but not depending on me exclusively by any chance. I also was asked by two of the midwives in Minnesota, the Amish midwives, to drive them to Wisconsin last year. And that was an absolute blast. We had such fun. We ate
That's
out along the way. We stopped for thrift stores. Uh, just fun things that they are allowed, but they hardly ever go out. So this was, and the meeting alone, there were 70 Amish midwives from across Wisconsin. And instead of the the whatever the government banning home birth with unlicensed midwives, these people got together, not the Amish, the English doctors got together and said, if we can't beat them, let's join them. And they put together an annual training session for these 70 women to teach them safe best practice when they are delivering Amish babies at home, and trying to help them to be aware that there are enough congenital problems or genetics that are awful in some, not because they're marrying within inbreeding too much, but just because there are genetics that are passed down. The Jews are seeing many of the same or similar problems. Very interesting. that was interesting. And they taught the women how to treat a baby that looks like this. Or if you're not sure what you're looking at, how many hours do you normally have before you transfer to a hospital? All this important information. Then they even had one class for them, and they demonstrated how to deliver a baby either in a buggy or a taxi, so that they have this information, they have this education, and they are trying to do this and at the same time reinforcing that they can be called 24 hours a day at the hospitals in Wisconsin, and they won't be penalized, they'll be helped, and they are trying their darndest to the conference was amazing. The people sponsoring it had gotten a grant and got free prenatal vitamins for everyone to take back to their clients. They offered free pizza 3 times a day just to encourage these women to be friends, to know that they're trusted and that they can call when they need to. When they have a baby with Down syndrome, some of those babies have serious heart or problems in their diaphragm, and they really have to be transported as soon as possible. They might look robust on delivery, but then what if they start to feel different or don't have the same muscle tone they expect? So it's been very, very interesting that way.
That is fascinating. Well, Stephanie, before we close, would you tell the potential readers out there again just a little bit about the series and especially about this newest book in the series for the holiday season?
Okay, this is the second series I've written. I wrote a series of 4 during the pandemic, and you can find those on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And there are 4 in that series, and that was my first attempt at fiction, actually. I had written 3 books on midwifery back in the earlier 2000s. And so this was my first attempt at writing fiction, and I didn't know I could do that. So these books, the first series is called the Amish Nurse series, and the second series is called the Amish Veronica series. And the Christmas book talks about Christmas trees, and there are children who ask, well, what's wrong with them? Why can't we have them? And there are even recipes in here for Amish Christmas chutney and Amish Christmas white cake and other recipes. And it's filled with good stuff. There's humor. There's heartache. There's challenges that people face. And I continually meet the public at a talk or just visiting with friends and family who think the Amish have this idyllic life, nothing goes wrong, babies aren't miscarried or anything, and that's not at all real life. They are absolutely no different from us, and I hope to portray that. No 2 families are alike. You have different understandings. Some don't feel they had a choice where they were born and brought up, but don't feel equipped to leave. And there are others who absolutely revel in this church that takes care of everyone from birth until death and supports those who are struggling. That was also a surprise, the level of support that these families are given. And I put all of that in the books, and I think each one is better, and I love doing this Christmas book. This was very fun.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on the show and telling us about your series. And we'll see you all next time on Where Women Talk.
Thank you.